since I just moved back, I had physical access to. An IT guy also got what podcasting was a very funny character, and he really was helping me out. So he was there, but there was a reluctance to his being there. And so we started a show called Bone Crushing Juggernaut. And that sort of, then we got shout outs on Edumacation. And somewhere along the way, I was pissing off my buddy Joe, also known as Pork Chop Murphy out there. And, about 6 months into that show, I was like, rather than Joe leave the show, I'll start a second show and I'll call it ThatMan on ThatMan. And it was just like, boom. And it'll just be about Kevin. I'll get all that out of my system. I had an idea. It was just going to be a guest show. And before I knew it, then my wife became included. And that show became bigger than BCJ. And Joe actually kind of felt like, oh, good. Now I can stop doing this now. Ultimately. And so the rest is kind of history, as they say. We've been doing it now for 4 seasons.
That's crazy. And it was funny, and I brought this up, I think, on our pilot show of this show, where I said Kevin's the reason I'm even a podcaster, because I was actually a security guard for a while, and I'd listen to a lot of pods while I'm at security. I had better to do. So I'd sit there and listen to Jay and Silent Bob Get Old and things like that back in the day. And Kevin would always give that speech at the end of the Jay and Silent Bob episodes, where he'd be like, you could do this. You could plug in a microphone, it'd be simple, and do this and do this. And at one point, I'm like, I got nothing to do. I have a day off every week, and my best friend's unemployed. So I pretty much texted him like one day, I'm like, you want to start a show with me? Maybe we could try to do it weekly and see what we do. And that was almost 5 years ago now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like, okay, I have an audio background. I was in bands all my life. Mm-hmm. And so, I got that part. I've been in IT, corporate, I was in corporate IT for a while. So I get the computer side. I understand that part. So I have that under my wing. And it was just marrying the two. And again, I just needed that piece from Kevin to be like, you know what? It doesn't fucking matter. Just go on the internet and have fun. And don't worry so much about, the particulars or the branding and what I found and what you find when you start interacting is there's a whole process to it. You know what I mean? Like most podcasts follow a sort of flow. It takes about 10 shows for that show to find its voice usually,
so true.
If the people are consistent enough to do it. And you can't, you have ideas, but like a band, which I've been in, you can't dictate ultimately what that band is going to produce because it's different voices kind of coming together. And so like when my wife got more involved in this show, it fucking got so much better. And then it improved like our relationship actually. And people say you can't work with your spouse. And I say that's bullshit. It depends on who your spouse is, I guess.
Agreed.
Because it improved our lives. Then we became filmmakers as well, and like it's been a journey that like has been amazing.
For me, podcasting is kind of like an ebb and flow, but at the same time, you have to be prepared to change yourself once in a blue moon. The show I did 5 years ago is not the show I do now every Friday. You know what I mean? It's not the same show, and it's actually not a bad thing. And the same thing with you. You change your show when you have to, and
yeah. And the show kind of finds its own things too.
Yes.
Like we're getting into this T-Bane thing, which is like this goofy. If you listen to Edumacation, they fell into this groove where Bane, from Dark Knight Rises, becomes a washed-up stand-up and deconstructs comedy on stage, but as Bane. And it's Kevin, of course.
Of course.
And then what happened is Andy started writing him jokes, like Jay Leno-style jokes. And it just became this, especially if you've ever hung out with a comedian in your life, a great deconstruction of, a comedian, because they're all a little neurotic. They all kind of think a lot of themselves as well. It was a brilliant bit. And we loved it so much that we sort of ripped it off outright, and even Kevin will say, imitation is the best form of compliment. Excuse me. But over time, what happened was, like, our Bane, I got, basically what I'll tell you is I got a vocal harmonizer, or whatever you call it, a detuner.
Okay.
And when you mix two, there's a hip hop guy out there called T-Pain. My son is filling me in on this. And so, like, all of a sudden, our comedian Bane became a hip hop artist, and T-Bane was born. And so we just, make
That's fantastic.
wacky songs as T-Bane, and that's become like a whole shtick now on the show, and it's one that my whole family is in on, and it's actually a lot of fun.
Well, I was actually going to ask you a question. You mentioned the filmmaking earlier. How did you get involved with shooting Clerks?
Very simply, when I had a podcast on Kevin Smith, and we were probably about a year in, and since, I'm a diehard fan, I'm not exploiting Kevin in any way. I love Kevin, and I'm a diehard fan, so I follow all the stuff. And they were talking. There were these guys in Scotland. It's like, I had a podcast, maybe it was on about 6 point, and it was like, holy cow, I've already been one up. I have a podcast on Kevin. This guy's making movies about Kevin. So I talked to them and talking to them and said, can you come on the show? And so, I would promote them, and there was a lot of mutual love. And so when they started filming here in the U.S., they asked me to be a part, first as an extra, but then when I got there, their second unit director said, hey, you're a big fan, you're promoting the show. What we're going to do is we're going to upgrade you to Kevin Smith stand-in. And so whenever you see Kevin, who is in Scotland, whenever they would cut to shots in the U.S. So when Harvey Wiseman offers to sell the film or buy the film, he's acting at myself and another guy named Frank Powers, who's playing Scott Mosier, kind of. So we're just essentially, the bodies that these guys are acting at. And so when they cut across the table, they're cutting to Scotland. But my hand is in there, and my wife, Jean, who also is my co-host, you'll see her in the background. And, it was a really, really cool experience. And then, so I had Chris Downey, the director, on the show, because we were starting to do commentary tracks. And we did one for Clerks, and I could think of anyone else to go to, but the guy who directed shooting Clerks, and who, we now had a relationship and everything. And so he came on, and we did it, and it was during that point, he's like, has anyone ever listened like Howard Stern? Howard is a huge influence in my life. I'm a 90s kid, so Howard was what you listen. And it was a total honor. And he's like, would you like to play Howard in the movie? And I was blown away. And so I got to play Howard Stern in the movie.
That is really cool, actually. That is really, really awesome. No, in all seriousness, you're actually going to be our second person from Shooting Clerks on here, because we had Chris Bain on the show. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, Chris Bain, you know what? He is amazing. We've had him on our show several times. He is just a cool guy. And it's funny, I recently tweeted out, I just saw Thor Ragnarok. And this won't be a spoiler, but, like, there's a rock guy in it. And he's voiced by a New Zealand actor, and I don't know the guy's name. But I said, this guy is if you've seen Chris Bain in Shooting Clerks, the rock guy is Chris Bain. Because every time they open their mouths, boom, they land, a laugh, like a natural, no problem, here it comes, you're going to laugh now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and so Chris Bain is like that in Shooting Clerks, and so is that rock guy in Ragnarok.
That's pretty funny. I like that. Okay, we'll go back over here, back to the minute we were in, because I did have one more section here we did not talk about yet, and that would be Randal. After our nice guy, annoying guy left, he has pretty much our ending monologue for this scene, which is as put. I wouldn't have been allowed to spit a mouthful of water at that guy, but I did. So my point is that people dictate their own behavior. Hence, even though I'm a clerk in this video store, I choose to go rent movies at, and that's actually where we end the scene.
Yeah.
Kyle, your thoughts on that little monologue?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, you're in charge of your own behavior. When you've got a job, you're expected to, curb elements of your behavior in order to actually do that job.
That's a good point. That's a very valid point. Trust me, I get that point. Scott, what do you think?
Okay, couple points. One, I've actually been to the physical location of that store.
Okay.
Now, I could see that nobody may give a shit in that given area, depending on the boss. So it all comes down to, is that guy going to rat out the employee, and is the boss going to fire the employee as a result?
Valid point. Valid point.
So the title dictates behavior. Yes, he shouldn't do that. He can, but like everything else in life, you're going to get the repercussions. It's like all these people going on about political correctness. To me, they just sound like people angry they can't say the N-word anymore. But they can. They can say the N-word. They just don't want to say it and have a bunch of shit on them.
That's a very good point, actually.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. I never thought about it that way. It's a valid point. So, well, that is where we end our minute. And Scott, I will ask.
Oh, that's a weird spot to end. A total racial weirdness party.
Don't worry about it. Scott, won't you give the plugs for how people can find it? We talked about the show already, but tell people how they can find you on the social medias and all the fun stuff.
Sure. For the most part, you can find us at ThatMan on ThatMan in one big combination word. So ThatMan on ThatMan.com. When it's not broken and is functioning properly, should dump you at our podcast. If you're on Twitter, at ThatMan on ThatMan, should take you to us. Also on Facebook, ThatMan on ThatMan. If you search that on Facebook, you'll find us. And we're pretty much everywhere. ThatMan on ThatMan. YouTube as well. We got a lot of stuff on YouTube as well.
Well, that's cool because you can also find us everywhere. You can find us at Clerks a Minute, at Twitter, and on Facebook, and on Instagram. We are everywhere. We are part of the Filling the Void Podcast Network, which is available everywhere you can find podcasts. And I always say it, including iHeartRadio, where you can hear this show 3 days a week over there. And I say that because I love bragging about it.
We're like Baskin Robbins. We always find out.
What? What does that even mean?
You have to see
that is such the weirdest joke in that movie. It's like, boy, Baskin Robbins really paid Disney for this one.
Well, I just had to stop my plugs for that one. That was just, wow, okay. So, on that note...
Somebody wrote a check.
You can find me on Twitter at Randal21106. Kyle?
Hudson Hawk FIM.
And you can also join our Facebook group, which is the Clerks Convenient Facebook group. It's easy to find us. And we also have a Patreon where we're talking about the animated series, patreon.com/clerksminute. So, I think that's all the plugs. Till next time, I'd like to thank, again, Scott from ThatMan on ThatMan for coming on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's so weird now. We knew it was a matter of time, but there would be other Kevin Smith podcasts. But it was nice to be in the space for a while.
Hey, you know what, though? At least we're all in a good place, though. It's all fun. It's all fun to be in the family.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've been waiting for this day. There's another podcast that popped up recently, too, and I went out and extended the olive branch, like, hey, just want to let you know, we're here, so just don't hate us.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for listening to the Clerks Minute. I'm Blake.
I'm Kyle.
Have a good day, everybody.
So I have no more control over my actions than a Death Squad soldier in Somalia.
Snorting, smoking weed, doing coke, drinking beers.